I was back at my other job, I'd have you covered. I work in an eye surgery center. And welcome back to Just Off Markham with Jason Pattyson on the Hill Media. And we are at SEC Media Days at the College Football Hall of Fame in Atlanta, Georgia. And we are brought to you by Trendsetters Barbershop, Lindsay Management, and Fayetteville Glass. I have a very, very, very special guest. He is a former offensive coordinator at Tennessee, former head coach at Ole Miss, and now special assistant to Greg Sankey. I got Coach Cutcliffe. Coach, how you doing today, man?
I am good. It's good to be back at SEC Media Days wearing a different hat, but have enjoyed seeing all you all from the media that cover this great conference, and 14 programs, 14 institutions that stand for excellence, and enjoying, quite frankly, Greg Sankey has surrounded himself with a lot of great people in the SEC office. Really proud to be a part of that group.
Talk a little bit about your role with Greg and kind of what you are able to do in the SEC office with him.
Yeah, it's kind of ever evolving. He had an idea that he wanted a coach, a real football coach in the midst of the administrative side of the office that could maybe bridge a gap between coaches and the conference office, can get a real feel for what's happening out there in college football, and specific to our league, but college football in general. So I've spent a lot of time, already was great friends with all 14 coaches, but I'm thinking like a coach. I'm an advocate of coaches. I'm a conduit for them back to the office. I believe and hope I have their trust. And whether it's operations people in the programs or equipment people in the program, I'm trying to build relationships and, again, bridge that gap that can exist between the boots on the ground and the administrative part of anything. So beyond that, we all know the landscape of college football is ever changing, and it's not so friendly to get involved with it right now for a lot of people, but we've got to find a way, whether it's complex or not, we got to find a way to regulate what we're seeing happen. I'm a fan of name, image, and likeness, which suggests when a person builds a name and their image is of value and their likeness, why shouldn't they share in those profits?
Most definitely.
100% for that. I'm 100% against using it as a recruiting tool or a reason to choose a school or an institution. I've always told young people, you choose right people in your life, not places. We're born to family. We choose our people, and quite often dictates our path. So I would love to see in some small way that we can help steer that in that direction. And we're not defeated. People that are giving up are wrong. Never told a football player 14 down going in the fourth quarter to give up. And, conference games are often won in the fourth quarter. Championships are won at the end of the season, not the beginning. We got to be our best right now, and that's kind of my role with the Southeastern Conference.
You look at NIL and how colleges are kind of using it as more of a free market at this point. And the free markets, they kind of level themselves out over time. But the volatility over the last year doesn't signal that free market's starting to balance itself out at all.
No, and it's not intended to be a free market circumstance in recruiting. Whether it's the portal being utilized to recruit with that free market, or whether it's a high school player that hasn't really earned name, image, or likeness opportunities.
Most definitely.
We can always regulate something that's not right, because something was a product of the law of unintended consequences or has become acceptable doesn't make it right. And so what we got to do is try to find right, and right for all institutions, right for college football, but most importantly, right for young people. What they should get out of playing college football, what they should get about understanding the value of team, of the focus being on team and program, those things can't be lost.
Most definitely. You feel like you can give Commissioner Sankey that insight from a coach's perspective of what he's seeing, like you said, boots on the ground, on the inside the clubhouse, inside the locker room, and giving the office that insight that they may not have seen in the past.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of what his thought process was. And I always start my perspective with the locker room. The game is not about the coaches. We've had some celebrated coaches throughout the history of the game, rightfully so. They've earned that. But when I walk around this College Football Hall of Fame, I'm focused on the players.
Yes.
And you start with that locker room. And I'll tell you this, whether you're a Hall of Famer in here as a player, the greatest thing that can be said to any former football player is when they go to some reunion and a teammate comes up to him and said, "Hey, man, you were the best teammate I ever had." Wow. Nothing's going to make you feel better. Nothing is more important. And so I do think this is all about protecting the locker room, and it's not real life to get something for nothing. I don't know about you, but nobody's ever given me something for nothing.
No. There's
something
always
of value, it has to be earned.
Always has something in exchange that you would ask for. Let's talk a little about the your transcending career coaching quarterbacks and how the landscape has changed last 15 years, last 5 years. You go from more of a pro style, you're seeing more of a running style. Do you see that there's any difference in the effectiveness of those?
I think that I would love the term dual as opposed to running, because when you say you got a guy that can beat you running with his legs, you still got to be a quarterback.
Most definitely.
Pro style or not, he's got to think like a quarterback, manage a game like a quarterback, and you're not going to exist without a passing game, right?
Yes.
So we've seen a lot of that transition. I still think the most important part of a quarterback is accuracy, and then you get straight to intangibles. So those intangibles would be toughness, physically and mentally. They would be what I just said about being a great teammate, an unselfish player. It's not all about them.
Yep.
It's not about statistics. There's only one stat that matters in football, and that's points per game.
Exactly.
That yours is higher than theirs.
Yep.
That's the focus you want any player to have. But what transitioned initially from defenses put us in the gun. It did. They were so great at blitzing. When you got a quarterback under the center making a drop, it is very difficult to protect both of those A-gaps and the edge. I mean, you were getting hammered.
Yeah.
So you go to the gun for protection purposes, because now the quarterback's in a circumstance where he can see, manage protection. He also is away from those A-gaps, and a back can step up and block for him.
Yes.
Okay. But then what happened was, how do you run the ball out of the gun? The timing wasn't the same. The snap kind of ends up all over the place when you're run blocking. So we're also trying to get the numbers right. You kind of start running option offense. You run the zone read. You run RPOs. You run where you're trying to gain a mathematical advantage in numbers. And then when you add the back as a blocker or a person to draw part of the defense in a fake, now you got your numbers right. So that's why the running quarterback, as you mentioned, became more important. I think one of the things we're seeing a little transition of is with elite wide receivers, and I'm not saying good, I'm saying elite.
Yeah.
when they can't one-on-one, and that's why that accuracy and that ability to throw it around a little bit makes such a big difference. When you get a lead out here and it takes more than one, well, now the numbers are back friendlier inside. Okay,
Yes.
press coverage and all of that started changing the way people played defense, and we couldn't run the ball, so we had to find a way. Well, now, if you can't cover who I got out there, I can run the football. So we're going to see different styles of running game reemerge that doesn't require a quarterback to have to, quote, run the ball.
And I'm glad you brought that up with running of the ball, and it's starting to expand more because of maybe like defensive speed.
That was it.
Caught up with the offensive speed. Now, you look at one of the rule changes that John McDade came down with yesterday. They were talking about no blocking below the waist outside of the tackle box. How do you think that's going to affect pulling guards and also with the screen game?
Yeah, I think that it's going to require a little more athleticism in space. You're probably going to see less schematic linemen out in space trying to make blocks. It's a potentially ugly thing when you get a big lineman out there. And so the screen game, the receivers blocking for each other. We used to have a Tennessee term way back. I don't know where Coach Majors got it from. No fakie, no blocky, no play. So you had to be the complete player as a skill player. And I think you see a little bit more of that. I think it's all in the spirit of player health and their welfare, and it's all good. You're going to see still some interior cuts and blocks and where linemen can come off the ball. We already know you can't have a chop block, so those would be one-on-one
Correct,
blocks. And but on the flip side of that, when a lineman is pulling, we have seen forever DBs go dive down at a blocker's knee and take them out, and they can't do that.
Exactly.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that transcends. And John and I have met a lot about, well, how do you call all of this? Well, we need to call it as the way it can be coached. You don't ever put a rule in and just say, this is how we can call it. You want to make sure that the way you're calling it is a way that the coaches can effectively teach it and coach it. And when you marry those two together, and we went through a lot of film together, and then you can see it. I mean, and again, cutting back across the ball and going low on seal blocks, and it's okay. That's a part of the game that's gone. How unfair has it been for defenses with RPOs? You got a real run, and what does a linebacker play first? He's run first.
Exactly.
He better not be pass first, right? He's run first. So when you see that kid commit, now you're throwing in right behind him on a run play? You're kidding me. So you want to make defensive coaches mad, tell them no offensive lineman has ever been downfield on an RPO, okay? The evolution of the game has been good. I saw a picture over on the other side of the Hall of Fame of a football coach at practice with a full suit on, the fedora hat, tie at football practice. And the players over there hitting a sled. They probably thought college football was going to hell in a handbasket when a football coach wore cleats or shoes or something, and so we're going to evolve, and we're going to find it, and we're going to work really hard together to make this work.
Talk a little bit about whenever you were coaching Peyton and Eli way back in the day, whenever you were in, interactions with both of them versus maybe a quarterback that you've had interactions with here in the recent future when you were at Duke. Talk a little bit about the differences that you may have seen with how they were able to sponge information maybe versus a different quarterback.
Yeah, I think it's a Manning trait. I've called it for years the ability to focus at the task at hand. Whether it's a conversation, whether it's a meeting room, whether it's at practice, total locked-in focus. When they're talking with you, they're talking with you, not to you. The great old art of note-taking. I have let quarterbacks that could type nowadays, type it in, but good old-fashioned notebooks. I just shipped Peyton all his early notebooks that I had kept for him and all the transitions at Tennessee. He had given them to Dr. Andy Kozar, who was a former Tennessee player, faculty member. And when he passed away, I knew better than to let those things sit. So I put them in safekeeping in my home. I shipped them to them. But, I mean, amazing, the attention to detail and note-taking as I went back through them. Then people don't understand practice. Allen Iverson had it all wrong. Practice, Well, yeah, practice, but it's the quality of your practice. Coach Aristotle had it right. For those that don't know, I don't know what the sport was, but he had to be a coach because he said excellence is not an act. We become what we repeatedly do. Those are called reps.
Yep.
And if your reps are only great at practice, you know what you got a chance of becoming? Great.
Exactly.
In any walk of life, anything executed over a period of time, trying to get better at whatever it is we do, quality reps. Quality reps. That's what those two guys did as well as anybody's ever played the game. And I didn't coach Archie, but I think Archie lives that way.
Yeah.
And I think it certainly, and Olivia, their mother played a big role in who they are.
Yes.
So, that's a good question, but that's the best answer I can give you.
That was an incredible answer. I appreciate that. Thank you. How do you feel like the old school type of coaching transcended into the new type of coaching in the digital era? What has the old type of coaching really offered the digital era that they still can embrace the core basics of football, but to the players now these days that can still, they can reach those players and be able to get them to understand that the old basics are the new basics, but in a different format?
Yeah, I think there are some core things that don't change. When dealing with young people, there is no bigger fool on earth than one that thinks they can fool a young person. They know whether you care or not.
Yes.
If you don't care, they'll know quickly. There's an old saying, say what you mean and mean what you say. And if you think about your own life, how many people do you know that you can count on that? Hey, I'll be there at 7 a.m.
Yep.
Will they? I'll call you tomorrow. Famous last words. So what young people are looking for in old school coaching meant just that. To blend in technology, again, there's all sorts of great things that we can send them. We can teach without being with them. I'm not talking about Zoom. I'm talking about voiceovers.
Yeah.
I hear study these 10 plays, focus on what you're seeing in the secondary. We get different angles of tape / film. I still call it film. But I think it's most important as a coach to understand the old school values are what gives you a chance to win with all the new technology.
Yep.
Now, you also, besides saying what you mean and meaning what you say, conditioning and discipline still matter.
Yes.
Technology's not going to get you in shape.
Running 180 plays a game for a full game right there, I mean, that goes hand in hand.
No question. And so how you practice, the quality of your practice, the demands of your practice, discipline is something that you owe to your teammates. If you're an undisciplined player, you're not the only one that loses. So you have a constant blend. We also video more.
Yep.
So we see things at practice much more clearly than the old days. I used to have to cut film up and put it on the wall and clip it back together, and we had to wait. In meetings, we would have meetings, we had to rotate the film to share to watch it. Now everybody's got a computer, they're watching everything they did every second of practice.
Instantly right in front of them.
Yeah, we had remote cameras at Duke that after that accident, the young person died at Notre Dame with a film tower. I eliminated all film towers. We brought a company in, and we put remote cameras. Our guys sat in a room and videoed practice. How cool is that? But and I love that from a technology standpoint. But it still didn't change what was having to happen on that field. Am I answering your question? Does it make sense?
Oh, yeah. No, you're spot on with exactly what I was wanting to get at. And you look at what Sam Pittman's done at Arkansas, for instance, and, going back to the last question where we talked about the old school transitioning into the new school, focusing on relationships and also bringing new technology in. I feel like he's really embraced that with the university.
He is a great fit there. He's a great fit as a Southeastern Conference head football coach. His fundamental values, he and I have talked in depth. His ability to care the right way for his players, to build a program, not just a team, to understand, building relationships. But he's great with it.
He's great at selling himself, not the program, not the scheme, himself.
And it's genuine, though. He doesn't walk out there on that podium and put on a show. He is himself.
Yeah.
He's very comfortable with who he is. He's been around great people his whole career. I've served on the board. I was on the board when we brought Sam on the board of the American Football Coaches Association. He was absolutely the perfect fit for that. He cares about the game deeply. I'm thrilled that he's in this league and that I get a chance to work with him.
Talk a little bit about KJ Jefferson and what the SEC might be seeing from him in year 2 under Kendall Briles, the first time that Kendall's ever had a quarterback 2 straight years, and how his maturation could definitely wreak havoc on defenses.
Yeah, well, I will start with the Briles name. I was close to Art when he was the coach at Stephenville High School in Texas, and he did one heck of a job. I signed his quarterback out of Stephenville. So when you say the Briles name, you already got a leg up. Kendall's a heck of a football coach and has come by it naturally. KJ is one of those multi-talented quarterbacks. Systematically, when you are going to do what they're going to do and they're going to spread the field, and you got a guy that can do that, get that ball outside, what we were talking about, to people that are very difficult to cover.
Yeah.
Hey, that system, they may run for 600 yards one week and throw for 600 yards the next. And I think he has that kind of dual ability and effectiveness to play. Now, you got to do it week after week, play after play. And you know where I'm going with this. Hey, go back and practice like you got to practice. So I'm going to come out and watch them in August. And, I'm a coach. I'm going to look hard at the quality of those reps. I'm going to look at their attention to detail and their ability to focus on the task at hand. And I would expect from that Briles tree and from the Sam Pittman tree, I'm going to see a beautiful tree at Fayetteville in August.
You kind of opened up my eyes just for a second whenever you said the Sam Pittman tree, because you always look at Nick Saban, Kirby Smart, and their trees. You see Sam starting to build his own at Arkansas.
Sure. I mean, he is a mature, you guys know that. You see it on a day-to-day basis. He is a mature thinker. He's not going to go with which direction the wind's blowing. I'm sure the people at Arkansas are just thrilled to have such a strong presence and a mature man. And you go back to Coach Broyles, and I worked for John Majors for 10 years, who was an assistant at Arkansas for Coach Broyles. I knew Coach Broyles well. They got a guy like that. I shouldn't say they, you guys, us, we. I'm a we now. I can pull for everybody now.
And it's the entire state of Arkansas, because you look at the state, and Arkansas is the professional team in that state.
I love it. That's college football. I have a sister that lives in Little Rock, and I love to go to Arkansas and see the energy and the enthusiasm. And, you know, if you're not a Razorback, what the hell are you doing in the state? I don't know, you know. So
that is so true.
yeah, I mean, and that's fun.
Yeah.
You got great fans there.
Well, Coach, thank you so much. And also, I wanted to put out there, too, he was the 1998 Broyles Award winner. And I want to thank you really a lot for coming on the set with us today, and appreciate it. And thank you so much for talking with us.
I enjoyed it a lot. Appreciate it, guys. Go Hogs, right? I can't do a suey pig for you, but I will say go Hogs, okay?
I appreciate it. Thanks, Coach.
All right. Yeah, I would screw up the suey pig bad.